In Turkey, a resident spots a flying sofa in the middle of a hurricane. A witness says the furniture crashed into a nearby building. More details on this later in the news. Good evening. I am Ricky Mathay. This is Mata ng Agila International. And now for the headlines. President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. lauds Philippine Navy's warfare skills. Australia vows drone equipment and military training for Philippine Coast Guard. China delivers grand plans for Central Asia Summit, but G7 leaders seek unity to counter Beijing's influence. Iran welcomes top officials from 8 countries for its annual oil exhibition. And Australian actor Chris Hemsworth to visit Manila for movie premiere.
I'll be flying to Manila this jet.
President Ferdinand Bongbong Marcos Jr. graced the Philippine Navy's unveiling of its anti-air warfare capability in Zambales. The Philippine Navy displayed its first anti-air warfare capabilities of the 3 Mistral surface-to-air missile-fitted unguided missile frigate BRP Antonio Luna. The unveiling also saw the launching of the bullfighter shaft on board BRP Jose Rizal class frigate and an anti-submarine warfare naval helicopter. The event is part of the Navy's 125th anniversary later this month. President Marcos said the latest acquisition of the surface-to-air missile system would further boost the Navy's warfare capabilities. He vowed that his administration would continue similar naval exercises. Philippine Navy Chief Vice Admiral Toribio Adachi Jr. said the event has shown the Navy's increased fighting capabilities and vessel survivability. Adachi also thanked Marcos for the passage of Republic Act 11939 with the intent of enhancing professionalism and providing continuity programs in the armed forces of the Philippines. The said weapons were acquired through the Philippine Navy's Frigate Acquisition Project Lot 2B, which was awarded to MBDA missile system based in France. Canadian Foreign Minister Melanie Joly recognizes that the Philippines is at the core of Canada's strategy in the Indo-Pacific. Madeline Villar Moratillo has the details.
After the courtesy call at the President's Hall in Malacanang Palace yesterday, Canadian Foreign Minister Melanie Joly met with Foreign Affairs Secretary Enrique Manalo in Makati City Friday. Representatives from the countries discussed an Indo-Pacific strategy in which the Philippines may have a vital role. Canada previously released its regional strategy last January. Its measures include engagements with the Association of Southeast Asian Nations or ASEAN, with the aim to strengthen its ties to the regional bloc. Canada also hopes to put set a Canada-ASEAN Free Trade Agreement. Manalo lauds the Canadian minister for the initiative to establish the strong ties with the country. Manalo adds that the 2 nations will continue the exchanges and dialogues ahead of the 75th anniversary of the country's bilateral relations with Canada next year. Madeline Villar Moratillo reporting for Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
Australia strengthens maritime cooperation with the Philippines by providing equipment and training for the Philippine Coast Guard. J.D. Mahinay has the report.
Foreign Minister Penny Wong announces that Australia will provide the Philippine Coast Guard, or PCG, drone equipment, training, and technology to strengthen the maritime domain, awareness, and protection capabilities of the agency. She adds that Canberra will also provide technical assistance to government officials to help combat illegal fishing in the country.
We want a region that is predictable, that operates by agreed rules, standards and laws in which sovereignty is respected. We want to work with the Philippines to support ASEAN's vital contribution to regional peace and security, including through maritime cooperation.
Australia will also help to suppress the adverse effect of the oil spill in Oriental Mindoro. Wong discussed in the bilateral meeting with Department of Foreign Affairs Secretary Enrique Manalo the issues surrounding the West Philippine Sea. The Australian official assures Canberra's support for the 2016 South China Sea Arbitral Tribunal Award to the Philippines. The Philippines and Australia agreed on the importance of the state's compliance with international law, such as the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea, or UNCLOS, and the vital role of maintaining peace and stability in the region.
The Philippines is a vital, long-standing security partner for Australia. And as our region navigates shifting strategic circumstances, we are working closely with each other to shape the sort of region we want, a peaceful, open, stable, prosperous region.
DFA Secretary Manalo lauds Australia for the sustained and high-level engagements between the two countries.
As close partners in the region, the Philippines and Australia share mutual interests and values that have remained steadfast for over 7 decades. We are further guided by our mutual recognition that the security and prosperity of both our countries are linked to stability in the region.
JD Mahina reporting for Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
The Department of Foreign Affairs sets the possibility of President Ferdinand Marcos Jr.'s state visit to Australia. Cristina Aguila for the report.
In a press briefing with Australian Foreign Minister Penny Wong, Foreign Secretary Enrique Manalo says that President Ferdinand Marcos Jr.'s official visit to Canberra may happen during the 50th Association of Southeast Asian Nations and Australia Dialogue in March 2024. Australia was the ASEAN's first dialogue partner in 1947. Manalo says that the Philippine government appreciates the high-level engagement Australia has given to the country. The two foreign ministers welcome the Quad's dedication to support a peaceful, stable, rules-based region with ASEAN. Quad is a diplomatic bloc among Australia, India, Japan, and the United States. The two ministers also look forward to progress the transparent discussions on Australia, the United Kingdom, and the United States or AUKUS alliance, which aims to promote peace and stability in the Indo-Pacific region. Cristina Aguila reporting for Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
Ambassador to the United Kingdom Teodoro Locsin Jr. says King Charles III hopes to visit the Philippines soon. The Philippines is not new to the British royal family, as the UK monarchy has been visiting the country since 1980s. Princess Margaret, Prince Andrew, and Prince Anne respectively made their official visits in 1980, 1996, and 2015. King Charles, who was a prince back then, also visited the Philippines in 1997. The Department of Migrant Workers, or DMW, says talks between the Philippines and Kuwait over OFW's visas ended in a deadlock. Officials from the Department of Foreign Affairs, or DFA, and Overseas Workers Welfare Administration and DMW were present during the meeting. Kuwait wanted to remove the shelters in spite of the Philippines' insistence that it is part of the embassy's mandate. DFA also said they are bound to provide protection for Filipinos living or working abroad. The Philippine delegation added that they remain open to constructive dialogue on how to address the current concerns. Experts believe the visa deadlock could extend the deployment ban by Kuwait on new Filipino domestic and skilled workers. According to the chairperson of Prime Infrastructure Capital, businessman Enrique Razon Jr., the country needs 33 billion pesos worth of new investments to enhance its energy security. The statement was announced after President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. signed the renewal agreement of the Malampaya Service Contract 38, or SC38. Razon notes that the 15-year production contract extension of the Malampaya natural gas field will help with the country's increasing power demand. Under the renewal of SC38, the consortium member is required to conduct a minimum work program. The program includes geological and geophysical studies. It also includes the drilling of at least 2 deep water wells during Subphase 1 to occur between the years 2024 to 2029. The Department of Energy estimates that the gas field near Malampaya has about 210 billion cubic feet of natural gas. Petroleum product prices will increase again next week. Oil industry sources say about 36 centavos may be added to the price of each liter of gasoline, 31 centavos on diesel and 17 centavos on kerosene or gas. The prices are not yet final as the trading days have yet to conclude. Exact pump prices are expected on Monday. Civil Aeronautics Board or CAB lowers fuel surcharge level due to cheap price of jet fuel. The airline industry is expected to implement low airfares in the next month. CAB Executive Director Carmelo Arcillas says the fuel surcharge level changed from level 5 to level 4. The change is due to the present price of jet fuel, which ranges between 30 pesos per liter to 33 pesos per liter. Under level 4, airlines can implement fuel surcharge per passenger from 117 pesos to 342 pesos for domestic flights and 385 pesos to 2,867 pesos for international flights. As for cargo, airlines can charge between 60 centavos per kilogram to 1 peso and 76 centavos per kilogram for domestic flights, and 1 peso and 98 centavos per kilogram to 14 pesos and 74 centavos per kilogram for international flights. Senators are pushing for a school-based mental health bill to be applied in both public and private basic educational institutions nationwide. Mian Corvera has the report.
Senate Bill 2200, or the Basic Education Mental Health and Well-Being Promotion Act, mandates the institutionalization of a school-based mental health program in public and private basic education schools in the country. According to Senator Christopher Bongo, who co-authors the bill, the well-being of students shouldn't be overlooked as it is prerequisite to children's academic excellence. Go notes that there is a need to establish available mental health care services not only in basic education but also within higher education. Senator Go adds that the filing Senate Bill number 1786, which sets and dictates public higher education institutions to also establish their own mental health offices as needed. If the bill will be passed into law, students can acquire essential school-based mental health services. This includes screening, evaluation, assessment, and monitoring mental health, first aid, and more. Under the bill, the Department of Education eradicate the stigma of mental health counseling. Mian Corvera for Mata ng Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.
Coming up, Ukraine bombs claim 3 lives in Russia. President Xi Jinping unveils plan with Central Asia allies. And Irish embassy rejects China's Ukraine order. Stay tuned for more stories from around the globe when we return.
Dito, ang inyong sumbong siguradong may responding katapat. Hindi nagdadalawang isip na tumulong sinuman ang nangangailangan. Viral ngayon, vlogger na nagkulong sa isang truck para makaipon ng 1 milyong piso na ipangre-responde sa mga batang may cancer. Ating kilalanin.
tutuloy ko yung laban kasi maliit pa to sa hirap na dinadanas ng mga batang lumalaban sa cancer.
Expose! Mga ospital sa Laguna, enreklamo matapos tanggihan ang isang emergency case patient. Ang ginawang investigasyon ng responde, tutukan. Exclusive! Residente na maapektuhan ng proyekto ng Manila Water, nagparesponde. At isang pamilya na pawang mga persons with disability, nagpasaklolo.
Nilalakasan ko talaga ng loob ko na i-PM na kasi lalo na ngayon, hindi ko alam po saan po ako kukuha talaga ng pang-ano pa namin.
Mapapanood nyo kami sa mga sumusunod na mga channels. Sabado, alas 6 hanggang alas 7 ng gabi. Ito ang Responde, Mata ng Mamamayan.
Welcome back to Mata ng Agila International. After setting up the Reintegration Council on Thursday, President Volodymyr Zelensky vows to restore Ukrainian rule over Crimea. Zelensky declares liberation of Crimea from Russia will happen for certain. He says more countries are beginning to realize that it is impossible to return peace to international relations without first returning Crimea to Ukraine. Kyiv is reportedly planning counter-offensive attacks against Russia. War analysts believe seizing Crimea from Russia is one of Zelensky's key objectives. There have been reports that losing Crimea is a red line for Russian President Vladimir Putin. Foreign officials also expressed concern over Kyiv's ambitions to retake Crimea. Some say Kyiv's action might escalate Moscow's military operations. Authorities say Kyiv's artillery shelling killed 3 people in the Donetsk People's Republic in Russia. In Yasinovataya, RT News correspondent Steve Sweeney tells us more.
We're here in the city of Yasinovataya, which is just outside Donetsk, hours after an artillery shelling in which at least 5 people were wounded, one of them very seriously. He's currently on the operating theatre where doctors are trying to save his life after both his legs were blown off. Now, as you can see, this is not a military installation. This is a local shop selling everyday items that people in this locality will be coming to buy. We spoke to some of the locals this morning who told us exactly how they feel.
Civilians were shelled again. We were standing in the store. The shelling began out of nowhere. We didn't even have time to run away, so we ran into the bathroom, and thank God we are safe and sound. I heard a man screaming. He was wounded. And then came the second scream. It was another man who was also wounded. He was screaming but trying his best not to close his eyes, because he knew that if he closes them for a moment, he is done for. Yesterday, I went to the market and it was shelled. Today, same story when I went to the store. A regular trip for groceries is very dangerous.
Yesterday, we watched a video of some Ukrainian military man on TV. He said that Russia wants to seize their territories, their fertile lands, and therefore they want to destroy us, including civilians. For what? Are they zombies? We are innocent people, not soldiers. We don't fight with them. Children who are sick and disabled, who cannot simply run away for cover during the shelling. What should these people do? It's very scary.
One of those wounded was here inside this shop when the artillery attack took place. You can still see the traces of blood as the clean-up operations are underway. This is a shop in which the local residents come to do their daily shopping. They buy their bread, their cheese, and other items here. So once again, this is an attack by the Ukrainian forces on a residential area and here a local shop.
In other news, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky will attend the G7 summit in Japan in person. The surprise visit will be his first trip to Asia since the war began. His attendance would allow him to meet key allies. Zelensky recently embarked on a European tour, pleading for military support ahead of a long-anticipated spring offensive. The Hiroshima summit would offer a chance to again push Kyiv's demand for military aid and possibly additional economic pressure from Russia. The United States and its G7 allies announced new measures targeting Moscow's lucrative diamond trade and more entities linked to the invasion of Ukraine. A source in Hiroshima said that Zelensky is now expected to appear, though the timing of his trip remained unclear. Iran welcomes top officials from 8 countries for its annual oil exhibition. Delegates from China, Russia, Germany, and Turkey expressed interest in Iran's latest oil achievements. From Tehran, RT News correspondent Youssef Jalali reports.
Hosting the 27th International Oil, Gas, Refining and Petrochemical Exhibition, also known as Iran Oil Show 2023. The event is a place for downstream and upstream oil sectors to get together and boost the country's petroleum output and exports. Some 1,500 domestic and 200 foreign firms from 13 countries, including Russia, China, Germany, Spain, France, India, Turkey and Oman are taking part in the 4-day event. Russian Deputy Prime Minister Alexander Novak is also at the event, heading a business delegation comprising 80 Russian oil firms. On the sidelines of the exhibition, Iran and Russia signed 2 contracts and 8 memorandums on different oil and gas projects.
We already have signed good contracts with the highly capable Russian companies in the development of oil and gas fields, and some of those fields have reached the production phase. This time, we have added 10 more oil fields to be developed by Russia. Fortunately, during this trip by Mr. Novak, we resolved the preliminary issues of the projects and entered the contact phase.
Energy analysts believe the U.S. has eased its grip on Iran's oil export as part of its push for higher global crude supply to control rising oil prices. This comes amid the surprise cuts in oil production announced by member states of the OPEC Plus group, which comprises the 10 OPEC members plus allied producers, led by Russia.
Iran and Russia are both targeted by sanctions. We both have significant capacities. We have good cooperation regarding OPEC Plus, and if we join our hands and support one another, we can neutralize the sanctions.
Another side effect of the oil embargoes on Iran is the absence of foreign tech providers from Iran's oil projects. This has led Tehran to further rely on its Chinese and Russian friends to invest in the sector.
Our main business is just as you see, air separation plant, nitrogen plant, oxygen plant. We can produce cold box, cryogenic tank, and so on. And so far, we have more than about 30 projects in Iran, and we had a very good cooperation with our clients.
We are glad to see Iran companies here, and we think that this exhibition is a great opportunity for us to have more meetings, for having new agreements.
Since Iran struck its first oil reserve back in 1908, it has capitalized on black gold as the main driving force of its economy. Now, as the West continues to turn the heat up on Tehran, the Iranian government scrambles to keep this strategic sector afloat. Now, organizers believe this expo provides Tehran with a roadmap to achieving this goal. Youssef Jalali, RT, Tehran.
China's President Xi Jinping unveils his grand plan to elevate Central Asia's development to the next level. Xi hosted the China Central Asia Summit, coinciding with the G7 summit this week. Leaders from Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Tajikistan, Turkmenistan, and Uzbekistan stand with China to modernize their countries. Xi says China is ready to help Central Asian countries improve their law enforcement, security, and defense capability construction. He also urged the 6 countries to oppose external interference and attempts to instigate color revolutions. Xi says they must maintain a zero-tolerance stance against terrorism. Foreign Minister J.J. Odongo thanks Russia for its support and aid in Uganda. In Moscow, RT News correspondent Donald Curter reports.
On the part of the Ugandan foreign minister, he said he had one purpose for his visit in Russia, and that was to thank Moscow for all of the aid it's rendered to the country in terms of socio-economic development. He said that because of this assistance, Uganda has become an island of peace and stability on the African continent.
We also came to express our thanks and gratitude to the Russian Federation for the support they have continued to give us in our socio-economic development in various areas that His Excellency has already mentioned. But in particular, we are very, very grateful that out of the support that the Russian Federation has given us, we now stand out as an island of stability and peace, and we continue to use the capacity that the Russian Federation has helped us to build to extend and play our role in ensuring that there is peace and stability in the region that we live in. And we know and believe the Russian Federation will be an integral, important strategic partner in our journey in that direction.
Another good thing that came out of this meeting between the Ugandan and Russian foreign ministers was the signing of a document against the countries being the first country in the world to proliferate weapons in space. This is an agreement that Russia's already signed with 33 other countries, 7 of which are on the African continent, and this is something that China as well has said that it has come out in support of.
We have just signed an important document, a joint statement saying we will not be the first to deploy weapons in outer space. Our countries cooperate in the development of the space industry. Uganda has launched its satellite, and we are ready to cooperate in the joint creation of additional satellites and relevant infrastructure.
That's basically a roundup of the most important takeaways of this meeting between the foreign ministers and the press conference that came after it.
Ireland's embassy in Beijing has not removed visible displays of support for Ukraine on its premises. Irish authorities declared they will continue to display visual reminders of Dublin's support for Kyiv. Earlier this week, China requested all foreign embassies to remove what it referred to as politicized propaganda on their exterior buildings. As G7 leaders unite to counter global challenges, China and Russia offer alternative solutions to innovate traditional international politics. Randy Bernardino files this report.
The will to win global influence intensifies as China, Russia, and G7 leaders increase efforts to woo other nations for diplomacy and investments. This week's G7 summit in Japan will focus on the Russia-Ukraine conflict, China's increased aggression, climate change, nuclear talks, and trade. The G7 comprises the United States, France, Germany, the United Kingdom, Canada, Japan, and Italy. But Tokyo also invited rising economies like Australia, Brazil, South Korea, India, Indonesia, and Vietnam. Some reports say Seoul and New Delhi may officially join the G7 bloc. The summit will also witness the reconciliation of Japanese and South Korean leaders. Experts believe European leaders in the G7 meeting will lay out plans to counter China and Russia's objectives. These plans, dubbed as Global Battle of Offers, involve engaging Brazil, Vietnam, South Africa, and Kazakhstan. Some analysts say many nations are now recognizing Chinese leader Xi Jinping's granular diplomacy and provisions on infrastructure investment. Russian President Vladimir Putin's supply of weapons, nuclear energy technology, and fertilizers are winning out over Western appeals in South Africa and Brazil. Xi and Putin also reinforced their special relationship. This principle in international law notably refers to strong and important diplomatic ties. But can G7 effectively build a broader alliance to challenge China and Russia? As U.S. President Joe Biden meets with his G7 counterparts, Xi is holding a China Central Asia summit in Xi'an City. Russia's Sergei Lavrov has recently conducted space talks with Uganda. In July, Putin will host African leaders with hopes of giving more aid to the region. Xi and Putin will also join BRICS leaders in August for a potential expansion of their bloc. BRICS composes of Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. The bloc has been described as fast-growing economies that could collectively dominate the global economy by 2050. BRICS also hopes to introduce a common currency to temper the US dollar's dominance. But the Biden administration says they are not asking nations to choose between the US and China. Instead, they are promoting an international environment in which governments are free from coercion by foreign powers. Whatever the outcome may be, experts and nations cannot deny that a new political game sphere is happening. The events to come will write the new and crucial rules that would run the world for decades to come. Randy Bernardino for Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
Opposition parties geared towards preventing the military bloc from remaining on top of Thailand have formed a coalition. The leader of Thailand's Move Forward Party, Pita Limjaroenrat, announced that 7 other political parties have joined their cause. The 8 parties include Move Forward, Pheu Thai, Thai Sang Thai, Prachachat, Seriram Thai, Pheu Thai Rampalang, Fair Party, and the Plong Songkom Mai Party. People are calling the coalition a voice of hope and change for the Thai people. Together, they secure a majority of 313 votes in the lower house, effectively taking a huge portion of the government. The Progressive Coalition now needs to win a majority of 376 seats in both houses of Thailand's parliament to select a prime minister and form a government. It will take at least 60 days for the process to begin, and there are still significant hurdles to overcome in a nation where the military has ensured a significant foothold in the government. The G7 Hiroshima Summit Session 1 was held for approximately 80 minutes. The session was formally titled Toward an International Community Characterized by Cooperation, Not Division and Confrontation for Global Economy. Prime Minister Fumio Kishida stated that the overall main theme of the summit is to confirm the unity of the migrant countries and strengthen the roles of the G7 toward an international community. Their identity must be characterized by cooperation and collaboration to demonstrate active and concrete contributions towards this aim. As a result of the discussion, the G7 leaders agreed on the importance of 2 perspectives of the countries within and outside the informal bloc. Regarding global economy, Kishida stated that he has advocated for an economic policy reform for a new form of capitalism. These policies include supply reforms for sustainable economic growth, strengthening investments in people, increasing wages, expanding internal investment, and promoting a virtuous cycle of growth and distribution. The leaders confirmed the necessity of governance for generative AI and immersive technologies. The leaders agree that they will have ministers in charge to discuss generative AI, dubbed as the Hiroshima AI process. The G7 leader also voiced his strong support for the World Trade Organization for global growth and stability. They then ended by highlighting the necessity to work toward maintaining and strengthening the free and fair trade system for world peace. Up next, Mexican authorities rescue 50 kidnapped migrants. 7.7 magnitude earthquake creates small tsunami in the Pacific. And Australian police taser a 95-year-old grandmother. Please don't go away. We've got more stories when Mata ng Agila International returns.
Ba ang estado ng ating mga manggagawa sa ibang bansa?
Pagpunta ko naman dito, hindi naman ako agad nakapagtrabaho. So, siguro mga isang taong gano'n nga.
Tapos po, yun po yung sobrang miss nila yung family nila. Yun, doon po pumapasok yung mental sickness po. Kung madadagdagan pa po sa work area nila, doon nagkakapatong-patong.
Nakakayaman pa ba ang magtrabaho abroad?
Bago pa lamang kayo magplano maging OFW, magpaplano na rin kayo kung kailan kayo uuwi. Pagdating sa Pilipinas, wala na mapapasukan na trabaho. Hindi makakapagsimula ng negosyo.
Pangarap pa rin po ba ng mga Pinoy ang maging OFW? Mag-reality check tayo.
This An 8-year-old girl from Panama died in the United States Customs and Border Protection, or CBP. Born with heart problems, Anadith Tanay Reyes Alvarez and her family were being held in one of the busiest corridors for migrant crossings in Harlingen, Texas. The CBP has struggled with overcrowding at its facilities due to the large increase in migrants ahead of the expiration of Title 42 last week. The girl experienced a medical emergency where they took her to the hospital but was pronounced dead. CBP's Internal Affairs Office will investigate the child's death. Mexican authorities announced that about 50 kidnapped migrants have been rescued this week. The victims had been traveling on a bus in central Mexico when they were taken captive. Tristan Diaz tells us more.
At a news conference in Mexico City, Defense Secretary Luis Crescencio Sandoval says troops managed to find 49 missing migrants. He says 650 police and soldiers searched for the group, which included 11 children. He says they found the migrants in a number of different places in central Mexico. Mexican President Andres Manuel Lopez Obrador blames gangs for the abduction. The migrants had been traveling north to the U.S. border on a bus when it was attacked while stopped at a gas station. They had come from Venezuela and Honduras. The gang had demanded a ransom of $1,500. That's nearly 84,000 pesos for each kidnapped person. Tristan Diaz for Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
A sofa was spotted flying from a building in the Turkish capital Ankara after heavy rains and storms battered the city. The footage captured by Ankara resident Onur Kalmaz showed a sofa flying from the balcony of a 35-story apartment building in the Kankaya district. Kalmaz said he was trying to check his car when he saw the furniture coming toward him. He said it fell into the garden after crashing into nearby buildings. Ankara Mayor Mansour Abbas issued a warning, urging residents to be careful about strong winds and flash floods. A tsunami warning alert has been lifted over the South Pacific 3 hours after a 7.7 magnitude earthquake struck beneath the Pacific Ocean southeast of New Caledonia. The major quake was detected at a depth of 37 kilometers or 23 miles deep beneath the countries in the affected region. The epicenter of the quake was near the Loyalty Islands of the French territory, New Caledonia, to the west of Fiji and Vanuatu. New Zealand's National Emergency Management Agency announced via Twitter that its tsunami advisory also remained in effect. They also warned that strong currents and surges had the potential to injure or drown people in the water. The South Pacific is one of the most seismically active areas of the world due to high rates of convergence between the Australian and Pacific tectonic plates that are constantly pushing against each other. Dozens of Tunisian journalists took to the streets in Tunis to protest the country's anti-terror laws. They say the laws are being used to intimidate the media. Jalen Valdecantos reports.
Thursday's protest in Tunisia follows a court decision this week to increase a jail term handed to a journalist to 5 years. Radio journalist Kalima Gesmi had appealed for a 1-year jail term. The protesters gathered in front of the National Union of Journalists headquarters. They chanted, "We are journalists, not terrorists," and freedom for the Tunisian press. About 20 journalists are currently being prosecuted for their work. Several rights groups and trade unions have criticized the decline in civic freedoms since President Kais Saied launched a sweeping power grab in July 2021. Jalen Valdecantos for Matanang Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.
More than 400 refugees and asylum seekers have been arrested in the southeastern African nation of Malawi. Authorities made the arrests in a series of pre-dawn raids. Kimi Oria tells us more.
Among the 400 refugees who have been rounded up, 100 are children. The crackdown came about 2 months after the government ordered refugees to return to an overcrowded camp about 40 kilometers from the capital of Malawi. The camp had been built in 1994 to accommodate about 12,000 people. More than 56,000 live there now. Those arrested are being screened to determine whether they are in the country legally. Most of them come from the Democratic Republic of the Congo, Rwanda, and Burundi. Malawi is home to about 70,000 refugees and asylum seekers. Kimi Oria for Matanang Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
After days of withholding details, officers had tasered a 95-year-old grandmother as she slowly moved towards them on her walking frame while holding a steak knife. Australian police confirmed that Claire Nowland, who has dementia, was in a critical condition following the confrontation at her nursing home on Wednesday. Officers were sent to Lialambi Lodge after being alerted that a woman was armed with a knife. Paramedics and police urged Nowland to drop the steak knife in a conversation, prompting one officer to fire his taser at her. She then fell backwards and struck her head on the ground. Ambulance paramedics treated the woman and took her to Kuma District Hospital. Officers opened a critical incident investigation, including the discharge of a taser. The Biden administration announces nearly $11 billion to help bring affordable and reliable clean energy to rural communities across America. Bruce Balmeo reports.
$11 billion in grants and loans are made available to assist energy and utility providers advance clean energy in their communities. Funding is available through 2 programs under the Inflation Reduction Act. These are the Empowering Rural America, or New Era program, and the Powering Affordable Clean Energy, or PACE program. The Agriculture Department will be opening a letter of interest process for the New Era program, which makes $9.7 billion available to eligible rural electric cooperatives. This to deploy renewable energy systems, zero emission, and carbon capture systems. The same goes with the PACE program, which makes $1 billion available in partially forgivable loans to renewable energy developers and electric service providers. Agriculture Secretary Tom Vilsack says these investments support thousands of new jobs and help lower energy costs in the future. He says it will also combat climate change and significantly reduce air and water pollution that put children's health at risk. The funding makes the nation's largest ever investment in combating the climate crisis. In Washington, D.C., Bruce Balmeo for Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
It looks like Mexico's most active volcano is getting ready to blow its top. The Popocatépetl volcano is showing increased activity. Arlene Ocampo tells us more.
The Popocatépetl volcano has had some moderate eruptions the past few days. What you see is a time-lapse of the eruptions showing steam and ash spewing from its crater. The volcano is about 90 kilometers from Mexico City. As a precaution, authorities have canceled in-person school classes in communities around the mountain. The decision affects about 100,000 students. Their classes will now be conducted online. People are being told to limit their time outdoors because ash from the volcano can affect air quality. If the eruptions increase in intensity, they could trigger mass evacuations. Arlene Ocampo for Mata ng Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.
Coming right up, China surpasses Japan as the world's top auto exporter. Disney cancels a major investment deal in Florida. And Chris Hemsworth announces he is coming to Manila. Catch the latest in business, sports, and entertainment when Mata ng Agila International returns. Welcome back to Mata ng Agila International. China surpasses Japan as the world's top auto exporter in the first quarter of 2023. According to the China Association of Automobile Manufacturers, Beijing's exports in the said industry jumps 58% to 1.07 million units between January and March. Japan Automobile Manufacturers Association's reports that Tokyo exported 950,000 vehicles in the same quarter, a 6% increase this year. In 2009, China surpassed the United States to become the world's largest market for new vehicles. vehicles. China's transition to electric vehicles boosts its capabilities as an auto exporter. Beijing state media claims that Tesla's China branch tops as an exporter of new energy vehicles at 90,000 units. The ongoing dispute between Disney and Florida Governor Ron DeSantis reached new lows. Disney is canceling a $867 million project in Lake Nona, Florida. The said investment would have relocated 2,000 jobs to Central Florida. By walking away, Disney forwent a chance to earn up to $570 million in tax credits. Disney has been feuding with DeSantis over his legislature's stance in education law. In Denmark, Danish gynecologists published a study showing that taking blood samples from the mother after a miscarriage as early as week 5 of pregnancy can help to explain why it occurred. Data shows that 1 in 10 women experience pregnancy loss, with the quantity even higher in countries where maternity occurs later in a woman's childbearing years. According to Danish doctors, the fetus with chromosome anomalies accounts for 50 to 60% of miscarriages. In 2020, Copenhagen or Hagen Pregnancy Loss or COPL project was launched to yield unique database coming from 1,700 women. According to Dr. Sevare Nielsen, the study's findings may help to prevent 5% of the 30 million miscarriages worldwide yearly. In the snowy peaks of Denver, Colorado, Jamal Murray catches fire to torch the Lakers late in the fourth. And in Barcelona, the king of clay, Rafael Nadal, announces his retirement from professional tennis. We have Henry Villanueva with the score.
In the 2023 NBA playoffs, the Denver Nuggets overtake the Los Angeles Lakers for Game 2 at the Western Conference Finals, 108-103. Jamal Murray and Nikola Jokic led the Nuggets to a 2-0 series lead against the Lakers. Murray had 37 points, scoring 23 in the fourth quarter alone. Jokic, meanwhile, had another triple-double night with 23 points, 17 boards, and 12 assists. For the Lakers, LeBron James and Austin Reeves led the team with 22 points each. Rui Hachimura added 21 points in an almost perfect game. Game 3 will be on Sunday in the sunny streets of Los Angeles, where the Lakers will try to bounce back against their opponents, the Denver Nuggets. And now, we fly off to Barcelona, Spain for a moment with a former world number 1. Rafael Nadal withdraws from the French Open due to a hip injury. The King of Clay also announced that he expects 2024 to be his final year in professional tennis. It will be his first time since his 2005 debut at Roland Garros that a 36-year-old Spanish player will miss the clay court. He has won it a record-setting 14 times. Nadal said he was taking a few months off without training, meaning he will also definitely miss Wimbledon and most likely the US Open, which means his tennis season is most likely over. El Toro would not set a date for his return, but indicated that the Davis Cup in November could be a potential target. The Spaniard says it was important to step away from the game in order to come back next year and say goodbye by playing in his favorite events. Nadal is hopeful that taking a complete break will allow his body to recover.
Para decirle, no, creo que no me merezco terminar así. Creo que me he esforzado lo suficiente durante toda mi carrera deportiva como para que mi final no sea hoy aquí en una rueda de prensa, ¿no? Que mi final sea de otra manera y voy a esforzarme para que mi final sea de otra manera.
For sports, Henry Villanueva, mata ng Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.
Chris Hemsworth and Netflix surprised their Filipino fans. Hemsworth, who returns as Tyler Rake in Extraction 2, is coming to Manila. on June 5.
Hey, Chris here. Look, I'll keep this quick, but I'm filling you in on some pretty exciting news. I'm coming to the Philippines soon. I'll be flying to Manila this June for the premiere of Extraction 2, where I play Tyler Rake. I don't want you to miss out, so please come join me. It'll be fun. Can't wait to see you all there soon. Take care. Goodbye for now.
Director Sam Hargrave will join Hemsworth for Extraction's red carpet premiere. Extraction 2 premieres on June 16 on Netflix. And now that it's the weekend, you can relax with a trip to the movie theaters. Stephanie Mayo has her pick of what to watch.
Fasten your seatbelts. Fast 10, also known as Fast and Furious 10, is now amping up in Philippine theaters. The 10th film in the Fast and Furious saga's two-part conclusion, Fast 10 is careening towards the final chapters of one of the most popular movie franchises in the world. In Fast 10, the past comes to haunt Dom Toretto, played by Vin Diesel. As remembered in Fast 5, released in 2011, Dom and his crew took out the dangerous Brazilian kingpin Hernan Reyes and destroyed his empire. 12 years later, Hernan San Dante, played by Aquaman Jason Momoa, surfaces and is out to avenge the death of his father, ready to strike after a decade of meticulous planning. With Dante targeting Dom's 8-year-old son, the threat is very real and terrifying. Old and new stars feature in this explosive two-part epic conclusion, which takes viewers from Los Angeles to London, Rome, Brazil, Portugal, and Antarctica. Buckle up and speed your way into the nearest cinema. Stephanie Mayo for Mata ng Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.
It's the weekend, so let me send you off with a quote from American actor and style icon James Dean. If a man can bridge the gap between life and death, if he can live on after he's dead, then maybe he was a great man. On a simpler scale, when you are in a room and you're about to leave, always try to leave everyone with a smile and good memories instead of leaving anything negative. Especially now that it's a weekend, I am wishing you a very happy weekend. And that's a wrap for tonight's news. Catch the latest updates on our social media channels. I am Ricky Matay. This is Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point, abientot.